I think just like to welcome everybody. Sharat is a well-known figure, you know, uh, and then there's Bharat Panchal. Siddharth Seth is the product head at FlowBiz. Neeraj is CreditPay, and Rishabh is the man who keeps everybody at FlowBiz in line, the legal man, right? Would you like to just, Sharat, give a little bit of introduction, about yourself, and also Bharat, please, everybody, that'd be brilliant.
So thanks, Sunil. So let me begin by welcoming everyone to today's conversation on future of money payments in the Web 3.0 era, right? So let me begin by reflecting briefly upon what's happening around the globe. And I would like to start by a quote from Paul Krugman, one of the noted American economists. He said that fiat money is backed by men with guns. So the word guns is more relevant in what's happening around the globe and how the weaponization of financial services is being used being used and abused in certain way, depending upon which side of ideological divide one country is versus another. Right? So that also brings us to the adoption of cryptocurrencies in the financial ecosystem. And IMF also reported that cryptocurrency adoption can increase to another level in the current global uncertainty, right? So in this particular context, I would like to start today's conversation, and I would like to open this question to everyone. What do they think about the future of money and payments? And how do they see the emergence of private money? When I say private money, I would like to focus mostly on stable coins. How the emergence of stable coins, we have close to 180 billion stable coins as of April this year, a significant jump from last year what we had. So how do we see as emergence of stable coins in the monetary and payment ecosystem, and what will the future of payments? So Sunil, maybe you can start first and then we can take it forward.
Yeah, I mean, you put me on the hot seat. I think I would say both stablecoin and CBDCs, they are sort of in the same arena. And obviously stablecoin is ahead in the race, so as to say. But it is prompting the governments, 90% of the governments, central governments today, central banks today in the world are looking at CBDCs, There is a lot of countries don't like, cryptos, stable coin, whichever what word we choose to use. And hence you are seeing a stable, you're seeing CBDCs also coming in. My biggest concern with stable coins is that, especially in today's world where inflation is rampant, and it raises ugly head once again, that there is no control on monetary policy, and that apart, in terms of terrorist funding, in terms of money laundering, which is one of the biggest agendas also on the UN's, various committees, whatever you want to call them, so that's one of the things I see. But I think the point that you made that, the weaponization of the US dollar, that will speed up payments, that will speed up the acceptance and speed of advent of the digital money, that will definitely happen. I think CBDs the speed with that they'll develop will be there. If you look at the US government, they're also looking at the stable coin with a different eye now in terms of who owns and all the details. For example, today in India, they passed a law where even the VPNs have to give records for 5 years. So China has banned cryptos. So that's my initial starting point on that. That's where how I see that. So I've sort of I hasten to use the word I have my feet in two boats because they're a very dangerous place to be in. But I think I want to jump wherever. I think my take is that CBDC probably a couple of years, 2-3 years time will be probably the flavor, as much as you see, the stable coins today, that's my take on this thing. But the other people have obviously views on this. It'll be great to hear them. Yeah.
Thanks, Vin. So let me move on to Bharat. And Bharat, your opening remarks on the topic, please.
Thank you, Sharat and Sunil, for having this show. And so just to start, anyway, I'm representing as my personal capacity, not my company's view. So that's a disclaimer. But when we talk about, the current bandwagon, I'm sorry to use this kind of word, but we are just carried away about something happening worldwide, and we are just sitting in that whole kind of narrative. But in my view, probably India has a different kind of forecast about fiat money or CBDC per se, because you know the millennial kids are not aware about the scheme started sometime back in 1996, VDIS, Voluntary Income Disclosure Scheme. From there to demonetization, a lot of things have happened. But in between, there is something which we got a digital revolution, right? So when it comes to payment and future money, probably India has, at one stage, we have taken a leapfrog, but at some stage, we have yet not reached to the masses in countries. So somewhere it is, we are too much advanced. I mean, when I particularly see boys or kids are paying through UPI for even 10 rupees toffee, I feel always pride that something great we have given to the nation. But at the same time, when I go back and see in my rural part of the country, where withdrawing money from ATM or swiping the card to make a payment, and UPI is far, far away. It's like, it's something from different planet for them, right? In that kind of arena, I mean, that kind of area, it's too early to predict that uniformly CBDC will replace in, maybe a couple of years from now, because when I see from the overall aspect, see, India was 2 years ago was kind of dependent on the world trend, what is happening in the rest of the world. India used to follow, and there were a lot of implication on our economy based on something happened somewhere. But I think that India is completely changed today. We are setting a rule, we are setting a tone, we are setting some precedent where world might follow to us, right? So in that case, it is very, very contradictory for me to say that yes, while CBDC and fiat has a lot of kind of future, in India, I particularly see there is a lot to be discussed, lot to be debated, lot to be introspected from the overall aspect of CBDC.
Thanks, Bharat, for your points, and we'll come back to you on the digital divide, since you talked about different regions having different access to digital payments. So let me move on to Neeraj now. And Neeraj, so I would like to hear your views on what you think about the future of payments, and whether are we ready for stable coins yet or not, as far as India is concerned.
Thanks, Sharat. Thanks, Sunil sir, on having me here. Yeah, definitely. I think what Sunil sir said and what Bharat said are two different things. Macro point of view in terms of what's happening across, how the digital currencies will do. And I do agree with Bharat in terms of like keeping in mind India. We were just discussing before, the revolution, especially in payments, started happening in India somewhere around 95, 96, when the first set of private sector banks came in, the HDFCs, Times Bank of that time. That was the time when, the whole revolution in the financial services industry happened. I happened to be a part of one of the banks at that time, was Bank of Punjab. And, I was involved in the debit card program. It was new. People were talking of debit cards. People didn't know much about ATM cards also. We used to say, come with a debit card, you can use it and you can go and buy something from the shop, like a credit card. It was a very, very good product. The private banks were thriving on that. People were coming to private banks, opening up of debit. It all started off pretty well. But I do feel that, the banks, the private banks, or even the governments of the time or Reserve Bank, they were not able to take it to the next level. And when things went for a digital jump, when the NPCI was formed initially and things changed, we got UPI, we talked about micro ATM services, with Aadhaar coming in and Aadhaar directly coming into, Aadhaar enabled payment systems, using your thumb, link with your account, withdraw your money. That digital thing which happened in the past 4-5 years, especially post demonetization and with the Jandan, we definitely see, because we were there in the market, we saw a huge surge in the digital piece. people now using UPI, especially in metros, non-metros, even in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 towns. UPI is used commonly. Yes, for sure. People are using. But in tier 3, tier 4 rural side, you will be surprised to see the way people are using micro ATM services, the way APS is being used, the way money was given in the accounts of people, whether it was DBT for your, for Kisan, for housewives, for your what do you call natural gas, then for your school fees, all those things really combined and made it a point that the way digital moved up the ladder. Definitely, yes, we still have to go through a lot in terms of the covering that digital divide with Bharat talked. But I do feel that we have taken a giant leap and covered most of the stuff. But yes, UPI again, from a country like India, if we are able to bring it something like a UPI and make it global, we were just talking of stable coins and we are talking of other crypto. What China did with Union Pay around 4 or 5 years back, they went global. They ensure that Visa, MasterCards as payment networks are going to suffer, and they ensure that they are suffering. And I think I'm taking it in a different way. UPI is one which can definitely change and take all the payment networks head on. Our success, which is going to happen soon in Middle East, wherever we have got the Indian diaspora, Middle East is there, the South Asian market, Singapore, all these markets are going to really bring in the big revolution when we are started using UPI and all. I do feel what we are talking of the future, whether it's the technology driven by Web3 or metaverse, private currency, digital currencies are going to play a very, very important role.
Oh, correct.
Yes, India is going to take some time. And I think in today's statement only where the FMS said, let's not rush, give us some time. At least it's good in a way. Madam is, giving some positive signs, unlike RBI, which simply says no, no, no. So it's nice to hear that. So it's good in a way that, but I do agree, like what Bharat also said, we need to give ourselves some time. If we can create UPI, which is a revolution in the payments industry world over, even developed countries like Europe or US, they still don't have that kind of system. I do feel that, future of money is going to be amazing, and India is going to take a huge, big lead in that. We will be running a lot of payment systems down the line.
Mm.
Thanks, Neeraj, for your view. So I will take a cue from your statement, right, when you said that the FM has said that we should not rush. So as far as regulation is concerned. So let me move on to Rishabh now and get his views on first the future of money in payment, what he thinks, and second, what are the legal challenges with respect to allowing stable coin related innovation in India, right? There's enough talk about capital controls, which countries like India has. Other countries like Japan and Singapore, they do not have. And how can we address those capital control challenges so that we can welcome innovation in payments like stablecoins? Rishabh, over to you.
Hi, thanks Sharat, and thanks Sunil and everyone for having me here. I think what we are talking about today is discussions around connecting what many people would see as two different lagoons of the economy. One is the Web 3.0 universe, and there is the payments universe. I think first and foremost, when we talk about building for Bharat, and I don't mean Bharat Panchal, but Bharat as in Bharat India. When we talk about building for Bharat, we talk about the whole stack. So we talk about people who have a stake in the Web 3.0 ecosystem, and also people who are unbanked. And I think in both places, what India is currently seeing is a lot of public financial infrastructure being built, which I think both Bharat and Naveen spoke about earlier. Including things like your UPI, more recently account aggregator, e-invoicing platforms. A lot of public infrastructure is being built on the basis of which the unbanked can more properly be banked. And I think it is on this plank that we can really even expect a large part of the economy to even begin to think about participating in Web 3.0 platforms. Now, having said that, Web 3.0 platforms are offering something very incredible, which is a trustworthy way of exchanging value over the internet, when I talk about things like stable coins, when I talk about things like, your run-of-the-mill cryptocurrencies, it definitely gives, any emerging economy, which has, what Sharat, you were mentioning, capital controls in place, it will give them the jitters, because currently monetary policy and exchange control is solely in the hands of institutions like RBI, who exercise full control over it. And what these technologies tend to do is that they undo a lot of that control. It gives a lot of power back to the individual in dealing with this. And for any state structure, this loss of control can be very, very terrifying. And which brings me back to what Naveen was saying, that the good thing about the current government dispensation is that the finance minister is at least acknowledging that there is something there in Web 3.0. There are good parts to it which we need to adopt and address, and therefore that will need some time and thinking to address. And in the meanwhile, the good work of building this public infrastructure must continue. The question then remains is that what do we do in the interim? Do we let this new lease of life, that in the past 3-4 years the Web 3.0 ecosystem has got, let it wither away by not having any kind of decent controls in place, or we should just let status quo be and let them wither or dither the way they are doing right now? So I think in that respect, there are a lot of things that may be considered, both in the Web 3.0 world and in the payments and general financial infrastructure world. On the Web 3.0 world, a lot of unpopular ideas have been considered, which might help in easing some of these things. Things like necessary disclosure of any crypto holdings that any person may have, including your stable coins, having a depository set up, especially which mimics the depository setup of financial markets. These are all highly unpopular, and they go against the very grain of why cryptos came in the first place, the whole idea of decentralization. But I think maybe again, as a midway point, to let the current ecosystem stay and not flee to other places like Dubai, like we're seeing most cryptocurrency exchanges starting to relocate. Some of these kind of midway mechanisms should be thought of and taken care of. I always think of equating crypto markets similarly to regulation for bullion markets, where 30 years, 40 years ago, the crypto equivalent for many people was gold and silver, where they would park their interest in. And what the government did in those scenarios was they regulated the on and off ramps for both scenarios, where it's not impossible to today park your money in gold, but it is highly inconvenient to do at scale. And I think some of similar kind of controls that the government can explore today, by regulating crypto exchanges, by regulating OTC exchanges, a lot can be solved at that front. It's more a matter of having that sympathy in place and having that thought process. These problems can be solved. When I look at the payment side of things, a lot of work has definitely been done in terms of a lot of payment service providers have come in, and this growing volume of UPI on a month-on-month basis that we have seen over the past 3 or 4 years. But our Payment Settlement Act, which actually governs this, is in relative terms archaic, considering it was passed in 2007. And for the biggest players in the system, the likes of the Google Pays and the Paytms, the funny part is that in most cases, people who are operating these systems like UPI systems and wallet systems, they aren't directly governed by this act. So there is no today there is no direct regulation for payment service providers, which I think is one of the big loopholes which need to be plugged, because right now all these guys get classified as just system participants, and a direct regulation only goes through NPCI, through RBI, and indirectly to some of these folks. So a lot of things like consumer redressal, fraudulent charges on accounts, a lot of these things tend to get addressed on some of these things. So yeah, lots of work to be done on both sides of this equation, on the Web 3.0 side, on the payment side. And I believe we're just getting started, and as a country, I think with time we always do figure some of these things out, and stuff just ends up working in India one way or the other. Even if it doesn't, we all come to the conclusion that this is what it was always supposed to be. So yeah, with that note, I'll hand it back to you, Sharat.
Thanks, Rishabh, for your views, and I will come back to you on the depositories part, right, in the later part of the discussion. So let me move on to Siddharth now. So Siddharth, if you see payments, right, so there's a lot of friction between on-ramp and off-ramp payments, right? How do you convert your fiat money to crypto? So how do you think the future of payments is going to look like, the opening remark about the topic, and how do we address the on-ramp problem? There's a lot of friction, and if we talk about payments in the Web3 space or the metaverse, right, if you don't enable a seamless experience, it's difficult to onboard users to this new creator economy or the metaverse economy. So now over to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharat. Thanks, Sunil, for having me here. With respect to the future of payments, right? So like everyone mentioned, I was following what everyone was saying, and I was reflecting about the past of the money instead of the future of the money, right? So I was thinking, like, how did the money start? So we previously had the barter system, then the cash system came in, then we had digital currency, digital mode of transfer and making payments, right? Moving forward, I see that the money, as we know right now, is going to get decentralized, right? It is. There are multiple views about it. The regulators have different views. Everyone here in the session might be of different views. But I feel that is something that is going to happen because the kind of efficiencies that come into picture. No one lies that the fact that everyone knows what I'm doing with my money, right? It's my money. I should have freedom to be able to spend whatever I like to do it with it, right? So with that fact, I think it is going to get decentralized. We currently, the money kind right now is very um, uh, there's a wall around it, right? There are regulators around controlling everything around it. So probably in future we don't need this trust-based system. The trust by itself can be based on the blockchain or the DAO as we call it. Right? So I feel that is the future, but probably in the interim time till we get to the future, right? So as Rishabh was mentioning about the regulatory challenges here and what you mentioned around on-ramp or off-ramp activities, right? So definitely here what we saw recently was that one exchange came out openly with the PR around a UPI being mode of transfer for the payment, right? And then suddenly that caught an eye of the regulators, and uh, when they dig deeper into the issue, they figure out that there are not these exchanges are directly not dealing with the UPI rails. There are these so-called intermediary companies or shell companies that some regulators would like to call it, who are then partnering with payment gateways and then enabling um, the UPI or other payment methods on these exchanges, right? And regulators obviously have a very negative opinion of the shell companies and people who follow this kind of a route. Having said that, I think no one wants to do it, right? For example, when we were also running a cryptocurrency exchange back in 2017, 2018, we also had a lot of payment related issues with respect to Coinex. And we had to take certain routes, not because we wanted to do it, but there was no way out, right? So I also understand from the point of view of the exchanges why they are going through certain hops to be able to make the payment successful. But from the user experience point of view, that is obviously very inefficient. There's a lot of friction over there. And if the regulators doesn't evolve, obviously we have already started seeing the trends in 1st of April when the new tax regulation came into picture. And in July, once the 1% TDS also comes into picture, we are going to see the dry up of the crypto activity in the country, which I'm not sure if it is healthy for the ecosystem. So I definitely feel there is a need for us to work more on the on-ramp off-ramp activities. Otherwise, the other way to go about it is the peer-to-peer system, right? Wherein people transact peer-to-peer and then there's no intermediary in between. I feel that is even worse than having a regulated framework, because in peer-to-peer, it's as safe as any other peer-to-peer transaction, wherein the other party might just default and there's no one in between and you can't go to anybody in the case of for resolving the dispute. So better than peer-to-peer, I think it's better to come up with regulations.
Thanks, Siddharth. In fact, I would like to point out one important information about the Ministry of Electronics and IT. So they released one press release yesterday, and it mandated virtual asset service providers to keep KYC for all crypto users for the next 5 years. So I think to some extent they are making the right moves. Maybe they're slow, but they are kind of getting there. So now let me go back to Bharat and put this question of the digital divide, which is more prominent and pertinent. And since I think last week or this week itself, UPI was down, significantly down, right? So given this particular maybe aberration or exception of UPI being down, do you see a stronger case for a retail digital rupee or retail CBDC, or what is your view about a retail CBDC in an offline payment space, especially where there's not enough internet connectivity or the payment infrastructure is not laid out there? Bharat, your views, please.
Okay, great, sure. So let me draw some analogy between the physical world of the money and digital world of the money, right? The whole talk or kind of narratives being driven about the CBDC, central bank digital currency. To be honest with you, in the Indian context, the only saving what we can do by just stop printing of currency, that's the only cost saving. In very high level thought about all this, because when we are talking about digital currency, don't you think UPI is a digital currency? Don't you think AEPS is a digital currency? We haven't seen, like, let me go back, and that's again a cruel analogy, but it is a fact, and we all, at least on the screen, have seen this, the Great Revolution. 1985, Rajiv Gandhi, the late Prime Minister, said that we are giving 1 rupee, and God knows where 85 paisa goes. Only the beneficiary get 15 paisa, right? And while we all knew where the 85 paisa was going physically, because it was exchange of money by in 1,000 of hands, and that in physical form. Come back to the EPS or the DBT, what we launched in 2014-15, and every single penny is going in the account of the person. So that's the ultimate use. I mean, what are we trying to do? Is CBDC is meant for making a payment or tapping a fluctuation of the global market and making money or minting money, minting profit out of that? I think these are the two different aspects. The world is, or rather the hype is created about, hey, Bitcoin got 30,000 pound or dollar in one night. What people are rushing to invest in cryptocurrency or digital currency, not to safeguard their money. They are lured, or they are greedy to get maximum possible benefit out of the fluctuation globally and make that money in that thing. So I think we have to think from the use case point of view, rather than carried away with the narrative set by some set of people. That is point number one. Rishabh mentioned about one of particular incident about CoinDX or some action. Yes, as per the guidelines or the I would say the framework what we set, and of course I was part of the whole setting up the process around UPI ecosystem framework. If I would have been there so far, NNPC, definitely I would not allow CoinDCX to use UPI, because there are certain rules and regulation by which due diligence is to be done for merchant, and they can be allowed, they cannot be allowed. Okay, but that is not the case around it. The point is not that. Definitely there is a need to amend in the PSS Act, and all this is fine. Do you think, while on one hand we are so much making hue and cry about there's no regulation to clip PSP from the PSS point of view, tell me a single rule about cryptocurrency exchange. There is no single rule. They are just mushrooming here and there, and people are just putting their money. What is the mechanism for redressal of grievances of people? Zero. Nothing is there, right? So we are talking about something 32,000 feet high about world of UPI and all, but we are at the same time ignoring the fact about the regulation which are required for the sort of crypto exchanges coming every now and then. That is point number two. The point number three, the largest problem, the digital divide, and Shadu rightly mentioned about that. See, today, at least in the ecosystem, there are rules, regulation by which you can do a traceability of people. And in fact, probably the crime, what I have seen using the cyberspace and using UPI rail or digital rail for committing crime, I have investigated more than 1 million such crimes. So I have very clear-cut understanding about how they are using or exploiting the system of digital trade. Now, when you have control around all the system and still you are somewhere, kind of finding a dead end where you can't go beyond this. Now, in case of your unregulated environment, like, where you have no visibility of what is happening in the other side of the exchange, tell me about the traceability of money. Tell me about the accountability of something goes wrong. Tell me about if same cryptocurrency is used either for ransomware or giving supari to kill somebody, or for terrorist financing, terror financing, all sorts of things. How are we going to stop that? That is point number 3. The fourth point. I have seen that struggle because again somebody was mentioning about the 5 billion transaction of UPI. You all are seeing that good days right now, but when we launched IMPS way back in 2010-11, we literally were begging to the banks, hey guys, can you do some transaction? We want to test our system. We were urging, send 1 rupee using IMPS. We want to test the system. And one day, it was a celebration because we completed 1,000 transactions on IMPS after 1 month. It was a celebration. And what we are talking about 5 billion just in 10 years is a miracle, nothing less than that. But, people are not aware about the hindsight of that, where how much struggle we did as a NPCI, and then we with regulator and with government to set up the acquiring infrastructure. The payment infrastructure was required for the, it is, of course, the larger credit goes to regulator, NPCI, and the government, but equally the ecosystem has also invested a lot to have the acquiring or acceptance or issuance infrastructure across the country, right? We can't just ignore it. Where is the wherewithal to set up similar payment infrastructure using your so-called CBDC, maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, for not only people staying in Bharat, not only people are staying in India, which is hardly 8 to 10% people. What about to 80-85% people staying in Bharat? Because while I was sharing with Sunil someday that, while I'm talking so proudly about UPI and all the payment revolution, what we have done in last 1 decade, in my own village, people still see paying by card is a miracle. They were not having bank about 2 years ago. We got first bank in my village on, surrounding area of 10 kilometers. We got first bank about 2 years ago. Now, the mass is staying there. They forget about the CBDC is like a dream. They have yet not seen UPI. They have yet not seen FASTag. They have not yet seen the real payment revolution reaching to the villagers. So I know when again consolidating all my view, when we are talking about what is happening in the world, yes, it is good. I think it's very, very appropriate to quote Dr. S. Jaishankar, who said this statement about 10-15 days ago. Let us stop giving down to the world. Let's do what is in the interest of our nation. What is our priority? What our people require? Let us focus on that. We will make miracle. Of course, what we have seen in last couple of years or decade is nothing less than a miracle. Let world follow us, then we follow world other way around. So that's what is my view about the point what you made, Sharat.
Thanks, Bharat. In fact, one school of thought says that retail CBDC can also be used as universal basic income for people who don't have bank accounts yet. So we do have Jan Dhan account success, right? But still, most of the accounts were not accessible during the pandemic, where banking correspondents literally had to go to people's houses and then make payments through APS, right? So that's one school of thought. So maybe
no, Sharat, I think I forgot. Good, you reminded me. But again, there is a great analogy I always love to mention here. The guy who has waited for years and years to have first landline at his home, it was at least 5 to 7 years. I'm sure Sunil will agree with me. We waited for 7-8 years to have first landline at our home. It was a celebration. Whosoever get either guest connection or the telephone landline at home. Now, look at the revolution of last 20 years. Everybody, kalo duniya muthi mein, that revolution has happened. So what we are doing, the guy who has never ever seen a landline from pager to the basic mobile, we are straightway giving him Apple iPhone, and they say, guys, start using it. Who are the people? Those who brought in Jandan. They were never ever banking customers, not knowing about what is banking all about. We have asked them to come in the banking sector. Now all of a sudden now we are shifting a gear. Hey guys, you use UPI. Hey, now use CBDC. Is it going to happen? I'm sure it is not going to happen, because when it comes to the special class of people, right, where you are expecting them to learn on their own, use their on their own, and make difference in the system. It is very difficult. I mean, at least in the part of country is very, very difficult.
Thanks, but point taken. So let me move on to now Sunil now and get his views on. So there's a wider debate between retail CBDC, where not many countries are so or keen on launching a retail CBDC, but there's a wider acceptance about the use cases of wholesale CBDC. So wholesale CBDCs with respect to cross-border payments, what is your view on that? And do you see competition from private money, stable coins, because they are picking up in a big way? MasterCard, Visa, they're already using stable coins on their networks. So how do you see that playing out, especially for merchants or businesses who deal in cross-border trade?
I think let me try to answer first some of the points which other people have made over here. Siddharth talked about decentralization of money. It is not, that is what is going to be happening, and I agree with that. But I think you still need some controls over there. And today, in today's world, one of the big things is about two things which are critical for most countries. One is terror financing, and second is money laundering. If you look at the Ukraine-Russia war, despite the US's sanctions, Russia, some people would clap at this, some people would say, give me a thumbs down on this, is that Russia was able to transfer money, get money through cryptos. Okay. Now, America might call it money laundering. The southern country would call it, what's the big deal about it? They've got their monies. I think all these, the fiat, the cryptos, the CBDCs all have their own place. I don't believe that things will change overnight. Nothing happens overnight. If you look at the whole GST in India, for example, has been a classic case. In England, the UK took 20 years for it to bed down. 20 years it took bed down. Okay. In India, it's about 6, 7, 8 years old. And if you remember the amount of pushback the government of India got to put it into play, I think still the GST is in its nascency, and it'll take some time to settle down further. And I think the same thing I would say for the retail or the wholesale CBDC, which again is, I think Bharat's point is valid. It's a little way down the road. But if you look at the developing countries, I think that's where you see retail CBDCs, unlike the developed countries, and more so in terms of transferring value to the unbanked. I mean, India is a classic case where Bharat very rightly mentioned there's a whole bunch of people who are not banked. The challenge is going to be that you may give it a name CBDC, but it has to be usable by the Bharat as the 80% or 85%, 90 or 70% of the people who are not. I mean, we have, in a sense, the UPI rail, which is a retail CBDC of sorts, and is demonstrated. And then you also have UPI Lite. Bharat and I had a discussion on a few days ago. He has, I hasten to, hesitate to quote this, he has a different view than I am, but I think it's the first step towards allowing the unbanked to bank. There will be mishaps. There'll be mishaps, which any large change system when you do happens, it will be there. But I think you're seeing the initial seeds being sort of sowed for the decentralization of money. There are different people have different views in terms of how money should be regulated, or if there's people when Bharat Sharat talked about. Sorry, Siddharth talked about it's my money, I can do what I want to do with that money. I think that is fine, but I think the question becomes that if you're going to use a terror funding, people have a problem. So this is the issue. How do you address this issue? Today, so my take on this is that you'll see these things, all three will be in running side by side. Stable, I think, is a fashion in my opinion, even though MasterCard, Visa, different exchanges are also dealing in all those things. I remember in 2008 when the mortgage bag scandal happened. I remember I was in New York, and the taxi driver said to me, I should buy these shares, certain shares. I said, shit, this is a problem now, And that's the same day I put options on my shares. And sure enough, after I think about 2-3 months, we had that whole disaster of 2008, And if you remember how many people lost their jobs in the US, people became homeless all over the world. So my take is I would sort of, in a sense, agree with Bharat on crypto. Unlike Siddharth and Rishabh, who have a different view on cryptos and stable, but I think it's a fashion which will be there for for a long period. But I think there at the end, I see a problem, over there. But whether it's 10 years, 20 years, I have no idea about that. But I think, but one plus point on this is that it is sort of made central banks wake up in terms of there's a problem over here. How do we address this problem? How do we address it? And I think the answer, if you look at 90% of the central banks in the world are looking at CBDCs of some sort, whether it's retail, whether it's wholesale, whether it's a hybrid mechanism, different countries. But long and short is that I think a country like India will need retail more because the unbanked population, the transfer of money to these, to people in different ways. There are a million use cases which are there, I wrote something recently on my LinkedIn account of a certain use case, I won't bore people with that, but that's my take on this, and regulation, at the end of the day, I think the important point will be the common man. It has to, it has to be acceptable to that common man, and during this period, there is the Web3, there is still money that will be paid, payments have to be made, there will be, a lot of these things will keep on changing, so let's wait and watch. That's why I was at Mrs. As Madam FM said, that let's wait and watch. Let's play it slowly,
Yeah, so I would agree with your views on coexistence of both all forms of money, CBDC, stable coins, and cryptos as well. So let me move on to Neeraj now. And Neeraj, I would like to get your views on how do you see payments and banking in the metaverse? So yesterday, Flipkart also announced that they'll be launching something called Flipkart Labs, where they'll be moving into metaverse, trying virtual digital stores. But if you look at the payment infrastructure into the metaverse, right? So it's not, first of all, seamless, but if you look at the why banks are there, HSBC or even JP Morgan, because they want to create those rails so that they can access the booming gaming market there, the ad market over there. So how do you see that playing out? And do you think absence of regulation, or since Finance Minister said that let's take it slowly, just do not rush. So the absence of regulation or slowness of regulation, is that hampering the ability of Indian startups to innovate and create great stuff or great products for payment infrastructure in the metaverse?
Thanks. So nice hearing Sunil and also Sharat and Bharat. So I'll just start a little bit like this. See, regulations are going to be there for sure, whether we call it centralized, decentralized, whether crypto comes or stable coin comes, regulations will always be there. I think I was hearing Rishabh also talking, I think few days back, when he was saying in a country like India, capital is very, very important and it needs to be regulated. And especially in a country like India, it has to be regulated because it's too big. We don't know what exactly is happening. But I differ in a way, like I'll definitely say, whether it's stable coins, whether it's crypto, we can coexist easily in this country. What we have been talking, whether it's UPI, whether it's micro ATM, whether it's these services. So these are primarily payment modes. These are payment methods, which we have given to a common man where he or she can actually go and use it. Aadhaar enabled. What we did, that using your thumb, which is linked to your bank account, you don't have to carry your card. You don't have to remember your PIN. You simply go there, press your thumb, take the money out, that's it. And you get your SMS on your phone that yes, you have withdrawn. Same thing on micro ATM. I think today only we saw one the article which came from white label ATM operators, where they have simply said they have requested RBI ministry to support them to build that infrastructure. In a country like India, where we have hardly 300,000 plus ATMs, in comparison to when we talk about China, where we are talking of 3 million or 4 million plus ATMs. Or look at the point of sale terminals. I always, I've been a part of that system when we used to have a company called Venture Infotech, which was the only third party processing credit card company in India. We never had a company. I'm talking of somewhere in around 70s, 80s, late 80s, when Discover and, these cards came into India. So, we have got those payment methods available. People are using it. Like what Bharat said, that best way is to stop printing money, make it everything digital. Let's focus on e-rupee, which was launched by NPCI. This is for your food, this is for your fodder, this is for the kisan to buy the beach and everything. You can do that. But the question is, money will always be there. We love money. We have seen it during pandemic, people queuing outside Kirana stores using their APS and your micro ATM services to withdraw cash. Best thing which has happened in the last few years is that what Bharat said, that earlier money was not reaching the people. Today, at least money is reaching around 80 to 85% of people and in full. That is one good thing which has happened. So, all these payment methods are there. And now when we are talking of metaverse, we are talking of Web3. I do feel India has the potential and India will always coexist. During this only we created something like UPI, where Google talks about it. We have taken it worldwide and we are very, very proud of it. Yes, it has done wonders for us. UPI will change the rules when it comes to your cross-border remittance. This will really make a huge difference for a country like India. And this is where I think metaverse and Web3 can be very helpful and they can coexist. Currently, like what Sharat was saying, JP Morgan coming in, South Korean banks entering into metaverse, HSBC coming with their own sandbox and all on the metaverse. Currently, I think metaverse is more of a fab. Definitely, everybody wants to be there. I want to take that opportunity. I'm the first one to enter into this market. It's like Citibank when they started credit cards. I remember merchants were taking 8 days for the settlement of the transaction. Now, I'll just take you a little back, just how did that work? When Citibank was putting those zigzag machines, those old machines where you used to print your card. Yeah. It used to take 8 days for the settlement to happen in Jalandhar. When Bank of Punjab started their acquiring business, I was part of it. We had those NACs, which used to convert the STD calls into local calls. Now the situation is different. We used to have NAC in Chandigarh, Gurgaon, Jalandhar, so that merchant doesn't have to pay that money. And we tied up with HSBC and Citibank to ensure that settlement to the merchant was happening next day. You as Nigam sir knows that, there used to be NRI Utsav whenever NRIs used to come down to India during October, November, December. We used to have fanfare in the branches. So this is where, jewelers used to come up with their own schemes giving, because they knew these guys who are coming from US and Canada, they have their credit cards. And India didn't have any credit card other than HSBC or Citi. So our payment methods have changed. That has been really, really very good. Today, maybe yes, in tier 3, tier 4, I can definitely use my UPI. I can use my debit card for making a payment. We have those MPOS solutions which are there, small micro POS. If you people have heard that, samosa POS came in India, somebody gave POS a name of a samosa POS. So today we do have those POS. So infrastructure is building up. So metaverse is always going to be there. If you remember, 2 years back, IndusInd came up with their talk to your virtual branch manager. What is metaverse? Metaverse is same. I'm taking it to a different reality. I'm coming directly into metaverse. Sharat is my head of branch banking. I'm meeting him, talking him about the credit facility, talking about opening of a new account, anything which is there. So, that is what metaverse is going to give us. But I do feel that metaverse, the biggest advantage, especially for financial services in metaverse, will be the customer service support. World over, which is very pathetic, I feel. Customer services will have a big impact, but definitely it's again going to be a certain set of customers, not the customers who are in tier 3, tier 4. They will graduate to this level over a period of time. But yes, it will coexist, and it will coexist. Talking of Web3 in terms of getting stable coins or crypto, yes, that is going to happen. Yes, we do need regulations. We might be 6 months or 1 year late, but we can't simply say that, okay, if Dubai is doing it, UK is doing it, US is doing it. We all know that US has got more than 37,000 plus crypto ATMs. Visa, MasterCard entering into crypto cards in a big way because thanks to UPI, thanks to RuPay, thanks to Union Pay, their revenue, their business is at stake. So they are entering into new ways of generating money, so generating revenue. So what will happen? I am myself associated with crypto. I've already got few of players who are talking to me in terms of, sir, how can we launch a crypto card? I'm in discussion with the payment networks. They are all open about it, but yes, again, rules, regulations are important. They will always be there. The PSS Act is important. It has to be updated on a regular basis because things are changing fast. So, I do feel that yes, Web3 will definitely change the way we work. And I do feel that Web3's impact will be more in a country like ours when it comes to cross-border remittance. I do feel that is going to be huge. You will be surprised within India, we have got a huge IMT business, which is your internal money transfer called DMT. I think Bharat knows that pretty well what DMT is. That's a huge business we have. Indo-Nepal money transfer. I do feel Web3 will impact these services big time. So that is my take on this.
It will be in terms of speeding them up or in terms of taking them away out totally?
No, speeding up also, changing the scenario, making things more easy, getting more payment modes. We have more of payment methods. MATM, UPI, these are payment methods. So Web3 will help us in bringing in the decentralized currency or a crypto. I always feel that if you are bringing a crypto card, which is linked with your crypto, the crypto card has got your name, you're using fiat and converting it. Today, we have a payments platform which takes crypto using the wallet program, converts it into local currency. You go there and go to Starbucks and have a cup of coffee. It will clearly mention Neeraj Malhotra came with this card and he has taken a cup of coffee. So that trail is there, that from where this crypto came, this owner of the crypto card. Because like what you said, Sunil, that, terror financing and money laundering, it was there 50 years back. It will continue to be there after 100 years. But we need to just streamline and have more processes, controls, how to manage it.
But that's the fundamental issue, that while you are doing all this crypto card and do the transaction and coffee and everything is fine, but where is the control from sovereign governance or central bank on the entire thing? That's the only missing point.
No, rules, regulations will come. That will come. That is why when I started, I said, let's not think of that there will be a decentralization. The role of government will always be there. And I do feel, regulations are important. At least it keeps majority of people in discipline. That discipline is
or else, it will be a reality of banana republic. Once, because see, the fundamental point what we are missing here, that compared to the population of the country, what we are talking today about, there's some part of Africa and small like Dubai and all, that is even lesser population than one of the district in India. How can you compare 1.3 billion versus hardly 30 lakh 40 lakh population? It is okay, fine. If you put in 10 kilometer periphery, they may be controlled with whatever force they have. You can't control population of India, and that in very weird technical plus socio economic equation. But the point what probably just want to add here, that the Indian psychology or psychology of our people, it's too difficult to change. And I pick up from point what you made, that people are standing in queue at micro ATM or ATM during pandemic, because we until we feel the currency, we can't get convinced that it is a currency. I think
No,
that will take too much
what
of
you said.
time than technical solution.
You will be surprised, when the post Jan Dhan, when people were getting RuPay cards, they were very happy to have that particular card in their hand, because that is the only tangible thing which they had in their hand,
Exactly.
which clearly showed, yes, I'm a bank account holder.
Yeah.
He's not happy using his mobile also. He knows I can check SMS is coming. But unless and until I see that card in
The
my hand,
physical identity.
whether he has used it or not, you go to him, do you have a bank account? He'll simply take out the card and he'll say, see, SBI RuPay card. I've got a bank account. My name is there. No, this is good in a way. I think what we have done graduated very fast in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Post 92, when that famous finance issue happened, when India was about to become Sri Lanka in 92, the growth from 92 till 2022, 30 years, it has been huge. And especially in the last 10 years, the way we have invested on the technology, the way our people have worked, like what Sunil sir says, tech coolies, whatever said and done, these coolies have done good work. I do feel that.
And I feel proud to be one of the coolie who has.
No, I think the point I made was that that is how it was. It was a very crass word which people use, but I think today those same quote unquote tech coolies, today India has the maximum number of unicorns, if you see, and when people said that people are, a lot of these founders are going over to Dubai and Singapore and Hong Kong, wherever else you go to. I don't see a problem in that. As Neeraj, we were talking earlier, that a lot of for example, in Vietnam, there are a lot of Indians who are actually founders of fintechs over there. Sharat had to sort of drop off the call. He has a interview with CNBC. So I was just thinking that if I can step into his shoes, I try to step into his shoes, which is dangerous to be there, is to actually ask people to sort of, if people have questions, Rishika, I don't know if people have sent questions. We can see people dropping off. It obviously looks like getting boring now for them. So any people have any questions which we haven't answered, which we can answer, yeah, have people sent questions? Do you want to sort of shoot them?
Sure, I'll just share them.
Yeah, please. Yeah. So Rishabh, do you want to sort of make a closing remark over here, for all the discussion that we had over here? What's your...
Yeah, sure. So I think there's 2-3 themes which came out. One was regarding lack of regulation for crypto compared to how the playing field is very different compared to the formal payment system, and that's the case because it's a fairly new area, and that regulation still needs to be thought of and built, and it's not for a lack of trying. A lot of industry folks have been working very hard to get in on that and figure out what is the best KYC mechanism. We do see there's a lot of wait and watch even for basic things that comes from the government on some of these things, and which is fair also, but there is that thing. And I think the second more important thing that I did want to touch on is that a lot of times, when we are thinking about building for Bharat, we sometimes, tend to think that, we definitely need to solve for this, and anything which doesn't solve for that is probably something, which is not very relevant for us right now. So, this is sort of the reverse of that analogy where, larger nations with more developed economies used to, a couple of decades back, point fingers at India's space research program. And, you guys don't have money for food and fodder. Why are you developing a space research program? And I think sometimes we see in our own country the reverse of this, that people internally talking about why are you talking about this technological solution which is so ahead of its time, because today people can't even transfer 10 rupees through their credit card. That also itself is a big thing. So I think we should try and not mix the two things. There is definitely a lot of development that needs to be done, and there is no excuse for not doing that. But I think that should also not serve as an excuse for not working on, or working on what is the future and what technology has to offer. So it is definite. It's a sad situation that in most villages today people don't have ATMs, don't have banks. But I think that's precisely what we are trying to do, right? We don't need these folks to go through bank accounts. We don't need these folks to have a card or something. There's a lot that we have already done in this country by leapfrogging in other directions. So, and here also we are seeing that a lot of leapfrogging is happening in the financial sector. Most villages probably might never see a bank branch. and they might directly, go to a UPI or, 5 years later, maybe a CBDC bank account with the RBI itself. So, yeah, there's that.
This one, the question which has come, somebody asked, what impact do you envisage from sanctions risk perspective with expanding fintech market? Do you want to take this on, Siddharth? Just, that would be, you want to repeat this question again? You're on mute, actually, yeah. What impact do you envisage from sanctions risk perspective with expanding fintech market? I think anybody else can pitch in also. This is an interesting question, yeah.
I think it's too broad a question, personally, but yeah, from sanction risk perspective, like if you were to consider the recent weaponization of dollar that happened, right, and it has not been the first time. It has happened in the past when US has did it for Iran, for North Korea, etc. This time it became even bigger talking point just because the country that was involved and the amount of money that they had, right? So I think from sanction risk perspective, obviously, I think what is at stake here is essentially the US dollar as a reserve currency, right? So if this happens again and again with many and more countries, people will lose confidence on having US dollar as the reserve currency, which we have already started seeing it happening. For example, Russia now dealing with India with trying to deal with their own currency, China dealing with South Arabia with their own currency. Right? So I think we already are seeing, if you were to see the reserve currency graph.
Correct. Yeah.
Obviously, US dollar is the leading one, but it is still like 59% or something. Then there is euro, then there is yen and other currencies, right? And the graph of US dollar is already decreasing. With this happening more and more, what will happen, I believe, is that people will start having their own currencies, and probably CBDCs would be the currency of choice essentially for having as a stable currency, in my opinion. Regarding from sanctions, coming to the fintech market, I think within the fintech is a huge market, right? It deals with lending, payment, credit, whatnot, right? So within fintech, I think the largest thing here at stake would be, for example, two things, right? So one is with more sanctions, I think if the crypto thing is going to increase, then obviously within fintech, the crypto related startups or crypto related ventures that people are running is going to boom. We see that with Ukraine as well as with Russia, both the countries, right? But another thing that is coming up is the funding for the ventures in general, right? So not just fintech, any venture, when there is some sanctions happening, some instability anywhere, there's a crash of money that is people are willing to invest in venture capital. We are already seeing it happening. For the last 3 months, the funding has already dried up across sectors, not just fintech. So I think that is another impact that this is going to have.
Do you want to say something on this thing also, Neeraj?
Yeah, no, I'll just say from a different perspective. Yes, see, when it comes to the sanctions or the wars which are there, definitely this is where what, like Siddharth said, this is where the digital currency will come into picture. There is already fight of misuse of SWIFT, or SWIFT being controlled by the European Union or the Americans. So this will really change the way the future work happens. So we will definitely see at a macro level, it is going to have a huge impact. What we were talking in terms of the impact on India, that will be more related in terms of what payment methods and how we reach our population. But yes, in terms of the sanctions which are there, those risks are there. India is talking of, rupee and ruble. We have been doing with Iran for a long time using our own rupee instead of dollars. So these things will definitely change. The impact is there. The role of emerging economies is going to be very, very huge, especially countries like China, India, even Russia, which we have seen, the inflow of all the foreign ministers coming down to India, in the last 1 month, and talking, especially coming from Europe and all. So that will be there. So I do feel digital currency is going to play a very, very important role. And it can become an alternate, not at a very big way, but yes, down the line in 5-6 years, it's going to have a major impact. And like what we were saying, why people moving to Dubai? I do feel that Dubai is also trying to look at themselves as a financial hub for Asia. If you all know that, Dubai, in Asia, Dubai, Mumbai, as well as Singapore, they always used to fight to become a financial hub. And like what Bharat said, with Dubai and Singapore being small countries, less population, easy to regulate, that was not the case with India. We have our own internal problems, issues to manage. That is why, Mumbai couldn't become a financial hub, despite, yes, we do are. So this is where I think Dubai wants to come into picture, you know, have a center where they say that, okay, let's be crypto friendly, let's give chance to everybody, but let's mind it, the Central Bank of UAE is still not taken any decision on how cryptos have to work. It's all being done. So it's all being done by something like a SEBI called Abu Dhabi Trading Zone or all these. So it's being done at that level for now. So, and definitely see Europe, I think somebody has also talked about the future trends for Europe. I think Europe is now going to work the way the Asia or the emerging economies are going to work. They are very small now. I do feel that, I don't know, it's my personal, I do feel that the Ukraine war has also opened up the Pandora's box about the so-called European unity or European Union. It has completely destroyed that. Germany on one side, France on other side, smaller players talking something else, Nordic countries talking something else. That is also going to be there. But I do feel, yes, money is going to go a little less on fintech, but fintech is going to drive the.
I think even Bharat needs to leave now, all of us. But I just want to say thank you, everybody. We've probably spent about 1 hour and 10 minutes now. There was one more question with somebody, which Rishabh, you may want to take that on.
I will quickly conclude on the question what came about the NFT and the fee about self-regulation. It's very, very kind of societal act to allow self-regulation in the financial world. If we allow that, then the whole system will go for haywire. So I don't think so that at any point of time something like a self-regulation will come and propose, and maybe the government or RBI may accept that kind of thing till the time we have some regulation around crypto is allowed. I think that was my take, but of course Rishabh can add into that.
Rishabh Sinha, the question which they just.
I think you're absolutely right. There is very little faith that most government institutions have on any kind of SRO scenarios, but I think the fact of the matter here is that we are in a situation where the government isn't giving any direction on what is to be done, and if these if these businesses want to survive, they will have to have some kind of standards they want to live by when they do business, including what level of KYCs they want to undertake. And this is all very much in the interest of especially cryptocurrency exchanges, which are currently the biggest players, to standardize some of these things. KYC, record keeping, all of these things, so that they have at least some legitimacy and authority, that whenever there is a requirement for having some kind of law to come in, that they can show themselves to be as good actors in the ecosystem, and not actors which are actually trying to create problems by creating an alternate asset class and allowing all kinds of problems to come up from there. So so SRO in the meanwhile will definitely be a good idea, which should be done. And it's not for a lack of trying. IMAI's blockchain cryptocurrency committee has been talking about it for years now, but I think players in that ecosystem have not been able to see eye to eye on some of those things, and that's one of the reasons why it hasn't come out so far.
Great. I think we have a diminishing population now, and I think the people are giving a signal also. We should thank everybody for joining today, the panelists obviously, and everybody else. But thank you very much, and we'll speak again, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.